So everyone makes mistakes, right? I make mistakes when I learn Japanese, you make mistakes when you learn Japanese, everyone does it. It's a human thing. And sometimes we don't even recognize those mistakes, and sometimes we find those mistakes and correct them, right? And in 2024, I did some mistakes that I wish I wouldn't have done when learning Japanese. So now that I'm at my 4th year of learning Japanese, of course, if I look at my learning history, I can kind of see which mistakes I did. And so you don't do the same mistakes when you learn Japanese. Let's talk about my 5 biggest mistakes that I did when learning Japanese in 2024, so you don't do them in 2025. So the first mistake that I did was not being consistent. So usually I was pretty good at being consistent when learning Japanese. But after I finished my language courses at university, I was there to just learn on my own. And learning on your own means waking up every day and really sitting down and doing what you need to do. You cannot just sit in class like in a language school, get your homework and go to class and then you did something. You really need to do something on your own and you need to kind of find out how you want to learn on your own. So basically, before I talk about consistency a bit more, first I want to talk to you about why being consistent is important. Because you often hear it when you learn something that you should repeat it often and that you should learn every day, but why is that so? So basically, when you learn something, your goal is to get memory, of course. If you learn a Japanese vocabulary, you want to remember it in case you need it when talking Japanese or when you watch a video or when you watch a film or anything. And basically, one of the best ways to increase your rate of memory is spaced repetition. So basically, I think you already heard about it. I also talked about it in my last videos, but really having an information and listening to it over and over again in certain time frames is really important. Because by this, just to put it short, your brain sees, okay, this is not an information that comes to me one time. I hear about it frequently, so it must be important. I need to input it stronger into my memory because it could be useful in the future, if we say it simply. And another thing about consistency, also something that I talked about in my free workbook, is that not being consistent with one information that you learn, but in general being consistent by learning every day. And basically, when you learn every day, you can see by this graph here that just inputting 1% every day has a much bigger effect than giving 120% one day and the other day 100% and then take 2 days off, and you kind of see what I mean. If you want to read more about consistency and about how to be consistent, you can read my workbook. Also, one reason why I wrote about this is because I felt myself that I wasn't that consistent, so I tried to kind of organize everything that I know about motivation and being consistent and putting it into this workbook. It's free, you can just look out for it, and maybe it helps you to be more consistent in 2025. And the next thing I'm personally really guilty about this is, oh boy, I never really wanted to learn kanji. I kind of knew that I should learn kanji, but never really in my learning journey I was like, yeah, I want to learn kanji. Because you have a word and it has a kanji. Then you have a different word and it has a kanji. But this kanji has this combination, has one reading and this another reading, and totally it has 17 readings, and you're like, how should I learn everything of this? And basically, next to the problem of motivation of learning kanji, there's also a thing that many people ask in the internet that I read recently. For example, on Reddit, one person asked, why do I even need to learn kanji? For example, if I just want to speak Japanese, why don't I just learn everything in Romaji? Why do I need to learn kanji? And basically, this is not even that dumb of a question. Because let's think about the German language or the English language. We don't have kanji too. We have one alphabet, and if you learn that one alphabet, you can express everything in our language and every word. So you may ask, why does Japanese need free writing systems? I also want to make a separate video on this topic because it's kind of big. So if you want an extra video to it, just write it down in the comments. But to put it really simply, every writing system in Japanese language has a reason to be there. And if you really understand that reason, then reading Japanese will be much more logical and make more sense all of a sudden. So let's go back to the example that we had before with the person that said, if I want to learn to speak Japanese, why don't I just learn Romaji? So let's take 2 versions of a text. One version just with Romaji, and another version with Hiragana, Katakana, and Kanji. And if you look closely at the version of Romaji, it is really hard to find out which word ends where, starts where, and which has which meaning. But if you look at the text on the right about with kanji, katakana, and hiragana, it is much easier to read. And I will tell you now why. So basically, every writing system has a purpose. And there are many purposes for one writing system, but for now I will just give you one purpose to make it more clear for you. And basically, hiragana can be used for particles, while katakana can be used for foreign words or names. And kanji will be used for nouns or adjectives or verbs. So basically, when you don't want to read every word of a text but want to skim through a text, you can just see, okay, it's a katakana word, maybe this is a name. Then you see, okay, this is hiragana, this indicates the grammar to me. Like, is it past or present, like tabemas or tabemashita, or maybe is it ga or o, is there an object or a subject? So this gives you a kind of structure of the text, and if you see the kanji, you can just see the meanings. So if you see the kanji for a noun, you know the meaning. If you see the kanji for the verb, you know the meaning. So you can skim through the text much more faster. And that is why it's kind of beneficial to have free writing system, because it kind of gives your brain a structure and you can read text much faster than you would do with an alphabet language, in my opinion. So now we come to the second point why you should learn kanji, and that was something that completely changed my mind about kanji. So basically, some time ago in 2024, I was having a call with my girlfriend, and she was talking to me about shukatsu, shushoku katsudo, so about job hunting and how annoying it is and that she doesn't want to do anything. Basically, when we talked on the call, there was one sentence that she told me, and it kind of went like this. So it was kind of like, "Ya, mou yada yo, naiteshiki wa ikitaku nai yo," is what she said. And basically, I was thinking, what is naiteshiki? Because I never learned this word in the combination. So kind of my brain started to work once in a lifetime, and it said, okay, nai, inside, the same nai from nayo, for example. Then you have te, and te will be used in many words to kind of set like a set, and ski, like a party or an event, if you want to translate it like this. So there's an inside, set, event. And I was thinking about, what could this be? So I learned the kanji itself, but I never learned the word itself. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, there's a meeting at her company where the people from that company meet together and have like a party or something. And that is how I kind of found out the meaning of the word. So if we go back to our example of an alphabet language, just by hearing the things, you cannot always guess the meaning. Of course, there are some words that are connected to, but not the same way as in Japanese language, because every word consists of a kanji. Every kanji has a meaning, so every word consists of kanji that combine a meaning that create a new meaning. So by kind of learning the individual meanings, when you read text, for example, you can guess the meaning of a word. And that is also something that I got told later by a Japanese teacher too, that even the teacher doesn't know every kanji. So when they read the newspaper, for example, they see some kanji in a combination that they never saw before, but because they know the individual meanings, they can guess what the person wants to say. And that is something really cool, if you ask me. And that is not just with reading text, it's also with talking. So if you want to speak Japanese, just learning the romaji and learning it like an alphabet language will not work for you. You can do it this way, but I'm pretty sure that one day you will not learn Japanese properly. And one important skill that you need when you learn a language, that I will also talk about later, is really reading the context. So don't just learn something how it is, really try to learn the simpler parts and try to get the ability, and that is basically why you should learn kanji. Because it really makes you much more proficient. And it doesn't matter how long you learn. If you learn 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, you will always find words you never saw before. But by learning the basic fundamentals, it will be much easier for you to understand and speak a language. Now we come to the third point. So basically, plan instead of starting. For example, if you want to learn for the JLPT, you will maybe think about making a plan and kind of saying, okay, I have 3 months to learn for the JLPT, so which is kind of short time, but for this example, let's just take 3 months. And in the first month, I will learn, I don't know, 800 vocabulary. In the second month, I will learn 600 kanji, and so on, and so on, and so on. And if you do this kind of plan and then maybe break it down to the daily amount of vocabulary you need to learn, you can kind of keep on track and keep being persistent and also see, okay, I learned that amount, I'm kind of in my time schedule right now. But if you plan too much, then it will kind of get something like procrastination. And in my case, it was that I sometimes try to make a perfect plan, how I should learn, when I should learn, which way I should learn, and I was thinking about things that weren't even necessary. So what I can say now about this point in general is that better start and learn something instead of just planning all the time and just procrastinating basically. And then the question will come to your mind, but how do I make a good plan and when do I procrastinate? I will talk about this topic again in my fifth point. Another thing that I kind of made a mistake on when I learned for Japanese sometimes was that I really tried to learn things too perfectly. So for example, when I learned a new vocabulary, I learned the meaning of the kanji. I also learned which sentences it can have. I really learned, let's say, for example, if you learn a vocabulary, it can have 4 or 5 different meanings. And I learned every single situation where it could happen. And then after some time, I saw that my progress is kind of slow and maybe I should not learn everything right now, but should learn in layers. And what I mean by layers is basically that instead of learning something perfectly in the beginning, just learn it really roughly. So, for example, if you learn a vocabulary, just learn the meaning of the kanji, how those kanji inside the vocabulary create a new meaning. And then when you learn the new vocabulary, you can maybe get one example sentence to kind of get a feeling how it works. And it is not just more time efficient, but it also gives you the opportunity to learn a second skill, and that is kind of called context reading. So basically what I told you before in the kanji example, by learning the fundamentals, you start to learn out of the context. So you see a new vocabulary, like I saw with naiteshiki, and I knew the individual meaning of them, so I kind of put them together and found out what it could mean. Because when you read books, when you talk to people, like I said before, you will have many, even though if you have N1, you will meet people that say things that you never learned before, that you don't understand. And by just knowing those fundamentals, you can kind of read the context from the information you already have and then find out what it means. And this is a really, really important skill, because if you know how to use those fundamentals in different situations, like I did, for example, with naiteshiki in this example, then it will be much easier for you to communicate with Japanese people, communicate much more fluently, and also don't have the necessity to learn every single information, because this just takes too much time. And now we come to another thing, and basically I had the following problem. So I went abroad to a Japanese university, and there they had Japanese courses. And I had 2 choices I could have made. One choice is I go to a higher level of courses, but if I go there, then I will be just busy with doing Japanese and don't have time for anything else. Or I go to a bit lower course, and in this course I already know 50% of the information. And the thing is that you can ask yourself why you learn Japanese, because that really dramatically reduces the amount of things you need to learn. For example, actually my goal of learning Japanese is to get in JLPT. Why do I want to get in JLPT? Because I want to have a certificate of my Japanese proficiency. In other words, I wanted to have a certificate of my Japanese proficiency to kind of show to my future boss. If I learn for the JLPT, there is certain information that you don't need for the JLPT. Let's just get a really basic example. For example, if I have the best intonation in the world when talking Japanese, this will not help me at all when I write the JLPT, because you don't have a speaking test. And every section in JLPT has different amount of points, so maybe you need to focus more on vocabulary than on grammar, or more on grammar than on vocabulary. You know what I mean. If you just learn Japanese because you learn Japanese, then you just learn everything and you don't really know where to go, where to focus, what to learn. And this will just make your whole route just way more complicated. And to go back to my exchange semester, basically I learned Japanese in this course. I learned many beneficial information, but it wasn't that beneficial for me that wanted to pass the JLPT. So what I decided is, after I studied like 2 or 3 months in this course, I just decided like, why am I even here? And by just quitting those courses and learning Japanese on my own and really focusing on the JLPT, I really got much more time to do videos on YouTube, for example, or to spend time with my girlfriend, or to spend time with my friends, and so on. And to kind of give you another way of thinking about goals, just think about it. If you're on a ship, for example, and you want to sail to somewhere, if you just don't know where your next destination will be, you don't know how many crew members you need. You don't need how many food you need. You don't know how many water you need, how much water you need. You don't even really know to go in which direction. So basically, you will just go anywhere but not somewhere. And that is the same with learning Japanese. If you really know the island you want to go with your ship, in this case it can be JLPT, or it can be that you want to speak Japanese, or it can be that you want to speak Japanese for traveling. Because someone that speaks Japanese for traveling needs whole different Japanese phrases than someone that wants to learn Japanese for his work environment. And by really putting down your goal and deciding on, okay, this is my goal, you know what to focus on. And trust me, this will really give you the opportunity to save much time. That is basically the 5 things that I kind of found out when learning Japanese. And some of this information I included in my free workbook about finding your language learning motivation. And I basically also wrote a free workbook that also includes some of the points that I just mentioned, because by having a goal, by knowing why you do something or for what reason you do something, you make your life much easier and you really know where to go, in which direction to go, and how to go in this direction. So yeah, if you don't already wrote down your goal of the year 2025, and if you want to create your goal for learning Japanese and really learn efficiently, then take a look down in my description. And as always, thank you for listening, have a great day.